Episode 8 with Sangeeta Robinson, Suman versus.
God gave them the right to be born, but we are not giving them the right to shop, to come and spend the money that they earn. However, they earn it with so much of difficulties. I mean, who are we to decide whether a person should come or not come? God has let them come to the world, no?
Good evening, Sangeeta ji. It's really so nice to have you on my show today. Sangeeta ji, you are Chief Sustainability Officer with PVR Cinemas, and the kind of work you're doing, or the kind of departments you worked before, are not a normal thing, because this sounds very extraordinary, because you were working with accessibility, you are also working with sustainability and also waste management. So this sounds super interesting, and we would like to know more about it.
Thank you, Suman. Thank you for the opportunity and the privilege to be able to talk to you today. Yeah, I am the Chief Sustainability Officer for PVR Cinemas. I'd be happy to share with the audiences whatever you feel that would interest them.
Sangeeta ji, today a common man, a lane man
Mhm.
don't know anything about. They really don't know anything about sustainability, how this affects organizations or companies, because only huge enterprises or huge corporates employ sustainability officers or sustainability managers. So we want to know more about sustainability, what exactly it is and how it is going to help organizations.
To start off with, I think everybody is feeling the effects of not being sustainable. We are seeing all around us, rains that are devastating in the very nature. We have seen deluges, we've seen cloudbursts, we saw what happened in Kedarnath. So basically, sustainability from a worldview point of view is about conserving your resources so that you can and using them judiciously so that you can get benefit from them for a longer term, so that your future generations can also reap the benefits. So that's the E part of. So basically, a few years ago, sustainability was referred to as people, planet, and profit. Nowadays, there is in the investment community, there is another popular terminology called ESG, which stands for environment, social, and governance. Just another way of saying people, planet, and profit. So I touched upon the environment part of things, but the people part of things is equally important. And in the people part of it, if we do not take everybody along, which means that everybody with various needs along, then we are not being sustainable as a nation or as a company or as any entity that we refer to. So if we refer to the program that we started at PVR in 2018, where we wanted to focus on on people with disabilities and the elderly. This was a clear indication on the fact that the company realized that there was a customer segment that we were not catering to, and from both the aspect of inclusion, as well as from it's a very strong marketing tool too, because if you are if as an organization you are not understanding the needs of a particular segment of customers, you're losing out heavily on making them a part of your value chain.
The people with different needs will also pay you, right?
Of course, of course. And so while it started off as a business responsibility, it started off very interestingly because our founder's mother is an elderly lady, and they had moved to a new house, and they realized she was having trouble moving, climbing stairs. And that's when they bought a step climber for her. And then they realized that there are lots of elderly people there are lots of steps in our cinemas, and there are lots of elderly people, and then there are lots of people with disabilities. How would that means all of these people are not coming to our cinemas because the cinemas are not designed for them. And that's how they envisaged this role, and that's how I came into the company.
Sangeeta Robinson, before we talk more about PVR and the kind of beautiful work they are doing, I have a question coming up. Now,
Mhm.
Sangeeta ji, why sustainability is ignored when we talk about a common businesses, small businesses, or medium scale enterprises?
See, so I come from that breed of I'm over 50, so I come from that lot of people who are probably are really early adopters of sustainability. And I had the good fortune of having worked with the Tata Group, and been among the first lot of people who understood sustainability and its value. However, for reasons that are not very well known, sustainability has always been seen as a cost,
Hmm.
and people have not seen the business case in sustainability, and that is why smaller businesses have failed to join the bandwagon. I wouldn't say all smaller businesses. There are some small businesses that are. I we met with this organization recently. That is into the auto component industry, but more of a smaller player, and they were so conscious of the plastic that their materials came in, and they wanted a solution, and proactively and also what's happened is that the industry bodies like CII, FICCI, and others have focused on the large entities. So now what's happening is that with SEBI having mandated business responsibility and sustainability reporting as for to the top 1,000 companies, and have also clearly there is a clear mandate on how larger organizations can cascade sustainability in their supply chain. By virtue of that, it will naturally happen. So, for instance, I am currently doing a supply chain sustainability project where we are assessing our entire supply chain to see how to evaluate it on sustainability criteria, and then formulate a strategy on how we will ensure that the various vendors and suppliers will adopt sustainable business practices.
Sangeeta ji, what made you to take up this career, sustainability, or it may be an accessibility or waste management? Because these are really, if you ask me honestly, these are all abnormal things. Like people don't really show their love for this kind of career options. What made you to choose these three options?
Well, that's interesting that you should ask that, because I actually did my post graduation from Punjab University in communication. So for the first 12 years of my career, I was into communication. And like I said, I was at the Tata Group, and I took on additional responsibilities so I had joined to head communication, but then they were looking for somebody for sustainability and CSR, and I offered to take on that role as well. And my MD was very happy to allow me to do that, and that's where my interest in sustainability and CSR grew. and I started getting more and more interested in the value creation there, because I found it pretty futile running after journalists and get trying to get media reports published, etc., etc. So it took me some time to make the final decision. In fact, my subsequent roles were also in marketing and communications. But finally, in 2013, I took the plunge. And not only did I move into sustainability, I also moved into my own consulting. So it was more of I started feeling that with I would like to do a little something more valuable with my life than just have a strong bank balance. And it did actually hit me professionally, because in India, making in mid career, if you make a complete change into another role, it doesn't it doesn't flow very seamlessly. So it was a struggle, but to me, what mattered most was that I should be happy doing what I was doing. And so I moved out of communication and into sustainability, and here we are talking about it.
Yes. And Sangeeta ji, now coming back to PVR Cinemas. PVR Cinemas is one of the largest cinema chains in the country, and they are also spreading across South Asia, right? So now, PVR Cinemas are standing tall in case of projecting cinemas more advancedly, and the kind of sound technology you have incorporated, the kind of movie viewing experiences you are providing to the audience is marvelous. So, considering all these things, what makes it more beautiful and wonderful is the care and the love you are showing towards people with special needs, or I can call it directly, people with disabilities. We would like to know more about it, Sangeeta ji, like how it all started, and what are the kind of sustainability or accessibility things are being taken care at PVR Cinemas India.
So yeah, it's PVR Inox now. PVR and Inox have merged, so we are over 360 cinemas
So now you
as
are
we speak.
biggest in the country.
And yes, and beyond in India, we are there only in Sri Lanka. That's as far as the spread is concerned. And as far as this program is concerned, I joined PVR in 2018. The Rights of People with Disability Act was notified in 2016, and like a lot of other establishments, we also had got a few notices from the government for some of our cinemas. But that was not the trigger. The trigger was that, one, of course, we realized that we were not serving a section of customers. And the other trigger was that at many cinemas, we were getting queries on whether a wheelchair patron could go in. So when I joined, of course, there was no precedence, and I told my CEO, who I also report to, that there is no precedence, there is no benchmark. So I will learn as I go along. So if that's okay with you, and I think they were very, very. They gave me a free hand on doing understanding how things had to be done, and chart my own path. So we realized that we had to focus on, of course, the physical part of it, which meant the infrastructural part of it, which was in our purview. Then, when it comes to people with visual disabilities and hearing disabilities, uh, that part, while we wanted to accommodate those people as well, but it lay beyond our purview. So I started working and meeting people in the government to try to see how we could, get equipment that enables people with disabilities, which, as you said, because we have the best technology at par with the best in the world. So all we have Dolby, and Dolby has track 7 and 8, which is meant for accessibility for people with visual and hearing disabilities. But the consumer part of it, which is the boxes for the subtitles and the headphones for the audio description, etc., they were being charged at normal GST rates. That was my number one hurdle. My number two hurdle was that even if I got the equipment at whatever price, the content was not accessible.
True.
So not a single movie is produced with audio description in this country.
Yes.
The ones that are subtitled for all other reasons except disability. So we do not have, and when I went and met Universal, Disney, and others, I said, listen, the ADA is mandates it. So what happens? What happens to those films? Why don't you just get them? They are already audio described and captioned. So what's the problem? He says we drop it for India because India doesn't need them. Okay, so I realized that there was a need for government regulation. So we started with a group of other people, like-minded people who were working in this space. We started making visits and speaking to the government. We had 2 meetings. Prakash Javadekar was then the Minister of Information and Broadcasting. Also met Thawar Singh Gehlot, who was then Social Justice and Empowerment Minister. And we managed to get a few communication out to the Producers Association to mandate audio description. Now, on the other side, we realized, okay, let's do at least one thing, because we started working on making our cinemas more accessible from the physical part of it, started working with the architects, to mandate a few things in terms of making sure that if it's not accessible from the front, that we make it accessible from the back. We have wherever existing cinemas, because making infrastructural changes in existing buildings is absolutely impossible. So where that is the case, we worked with we found this excellent machine. It's a step climber which takes the person in the wheelchair along with the person to the desired row. It's a track based. It's called a power track climber, and we've imported 54 of those so far. So there are 54 of those power track climbers that are there in our cinemas. So the person on wheelchair just slips under the wheelchair and clamps it at the back and takes the person safely to the seat and detaches itself, and the person sits there. This year we have redesigned all our chairs to accommodate for removable chairs, because we realized that while people with limited mobility with a little help could move on to the cinema chairs, there are a lot of people who cannot move from their chairs.
Yes.
So in order to accommodate those people and also not have a loss of seat, in an accessible row, what we've done is we have asked all our chair manufacturers for options of removable chair. So every auditorium that is accessible will have one chair that can be removed and a wheelchair can be put in its place.
Wow.
Then, as a second option, while we do not recommend, and PVR has always think that front row is not an option for people with disabilities, but this is an added, apart from the seat at the back, wherever front row is accessible. So there are certain people who don't want to be taken up the steps, even with a step climber. We're going to be removing a seat in the front row wherever the front row is accessible and marking it as a wheelchair space. This, I think, will be a precedence for all external, wherever there is maybe stadiums or auditoriums or everywhere. It can become a precedent that if a wheelchair space is marked, then that means that we are accommodating people with all kinds of needs. So that is work in progress. These two, the removable chair and the wheelchair space, are work in progress. Then when it comes to the hearing impaired, while not all films come with subtitles, we wanted to make the ones that do come with subtitles discoverable easily. So on the PVR app, on the PVR website, on Book My Show, on Paytm, all the booking platforms, you will be able to see which shows are subtitled. Now, the reason why some shows are subtitled and the others are not is because that's also an issue, because there's a section of the customers that do not like to watch movies with subtitles.
Yes,
So
yes.
that's why we said, in order to cater to everybody, we will make the subtitled shows easily discoverable, so that those who want to watch those can go watch those. Those who don't want to watch those can avoid those shows. So that is as far as this is concerned, the hearing impaired is concerned. Then comes the most difficult one, which was the um uh,
Visually
vision
impaired.
impaired. Yeah. So while I was looking for solutions and options, I came across Excel Cinema. Excel Cinema was a technical platform, and I had actually come across a few. So I was, looking high and low and looking in the West, looking here. But of course, I came across an Indian technology person who had developed an app that could stream audio described files through your mobile phone. And I was very excited about this. I said, no GST problems, no equipment problems, no maintenance problems. This is seems like the best solution. And I met this nice couple, Kunal and Deepthi Prasad, and we were very excited and gung ho about it. And we went and met multiple producers, with the solution together, saying that PVR is interested in being able to, extend this to people with visual impairment, and here's the solution, and all you need to do is give the audio file. So we tried very hard, but it didn't happen.
Hmm.
Interestingly, what's happened recently is there was a petition that was filed by one visually impaired petitioner, and he won it in the court. And apparently, the order went through that Pathan should be audio described. But our effort was that if not at release, one can understand. At release there are lots of other deadlines, etc. Within a week of the release, at least the audio described file can be shared. So anyways, now that is I guess it'll happen in the course that it'll happen in. But that's the solution. 7 or 8 films were described, some by NGOs, some by Excel Cinema themselves. And we made it a point. We screened special shows. I have lovely pictures of the screenings that we did. But these were then exclusive. Our effort was that any show should be inclusive for anybody and everybody to come and watch. Uh,
Excellent.
you know, and technology being the great enabler, we can do it. It is possible. It is all present there, and we can do it tomorrow if we start getting audio described content.
Today, we have a lot of movie theaters in the country, and there are many multiplex operators also. But how many of them are really doing such a beautiful work? What PVR is doing now, and for this wouldn't have been possible without you, Sangeeta Robinson, and we, the team Suman versus Human salutes you for the great work you together with PVR Cinemas are doing in the country. Now, my question is, you said out of the box cinemas are not made accessible. You, from a cinema exhibitors, and you tried your best to convince them, or to mandate making cinemas for everyone. So, how good it is going?
So it's like this, you see, we also, like I said, we also learned as we went along. So initially I was working only with the architects, and then I realized that the architects come in very late in the picture. First, the developer will give us a structure. So if the structure itself has levels, then the architect cannot do anything. He has to make do with those levels. So now we've gone a step back, and now we're working with the developer to say that, okay, if if this is how you are planning it, then make sure that we have a lift at the exit side, and we have a washroom at the exit side also, if the accessible entrance is going to be from the exit. Because those were the problems that we were facing. So as far as the structural part is concerned, we have I think we've overcome most of the barriers, except that now that we started working with the developer, we can at least ensure that if the front is not accessible, then the back will be accessible. So we will do exit and entry for those patrons from the back. Then the big challenge that was coming was, then that means that they have to come all the way down to use the washroom. So now we are ensuring that if that is the case, then we will have a washroom, the specially able washroom there as well, upstairs as well, so that then it's convenient for them. So these are certain structural roadblocks that we came across. Incidentally, by the way, I also have a disability. I don't think I mentioned that to you. So
I,
yeah, so I
I
wear.
I I know about this, but I would like to. I thought I have to present it at the last, because despite of
Yeah.
despite of having your own disability, you're doing such a wonderful thing, which was never touched by any abled person till today in the
Well,
country.
actually, it's a funny thing, because, like I said, before PVR, even I had been too busy in my own career, and I had not really, kind of done anything in that space. I also, in the till I joined PVR, had been too busy with my own career, and while I had worked on in Tata Tele Services, I had done a lot of work on outsourcing a lot of mainstream work to NGOs like Blind Relief Delhi, NAB, and IAB Madurai. But but I hadn't done a program like this, which was so large. I mean, I had done bits and pieces, but I hadn't done something so extensive, because this was a complete, it touched all facets of the business, from design to the service on seats part of things, how customers would be, how we trained our people how to handle customers with different needs. We have a training program in place, which uh, for every ESP or every person who joins, that person is taken through that soft skills training program every 6 months, so that we cover everybody, so that they know how to handle what terminology to be used, not to be used, and so on and so forth. So yeah, so it was like God put me in that place to say that, okay, enough of the stuff that you've been doing. Now it's time to give back. So I felt it was a personal give back as far as I was concerned. And my mother was very happy that I was doing this. I guess very few people get the opportunity of being able to thank God in that manner. That I was fortunate enough to have the opportunities that I did, and I wear an extension prosthesis, and I move around pretty easily. So I guess that's makes it possible for me to be able to do something for those that who have bigger problems than mine. So basically I think it was being at the right time at the right place and being able to have the opportunity of being able to give back. So think I consider myself very fortunate. And there's lots to do. So for those who are listening, we haven't arrived. We are also learning in the process. I'm always open to feedback and suggestions and places we can improve on. It's work in progress, but I really want to see the day when content will also be accessible, so that we can use the technology that is available to make movies accessible to everybody.
I have a strong message to all my listeners. My dear listeners, we everyone love movies and we love watching movies in the cinemas. Not, I mean, definitely on OTT, but more we love to watch them on cinema theaters. Now, my message is, if you have any movie screening, please prefer to watch it in PVR cinemas, because I'll tell you why. Because we need to encourage such kind of organizations, such kind of companies who really care for everyone, who care for you, who cares for me, and who cares for people with disabilities. Sangeeta ji, you mentioned that you are also a disabled. So we would like to know more about your journey into this disabled.
I have a short femur by of my left leg is 17 inches shorter than the right leg. The femur is short, and I was operated upon when I was a year old, and since then I've been wearing an extension prosthesis. As I grew, and as India grew, there were better facilities that were available, and my parents tried to get me the best that they could afford. I currently wear an Autobok, and I grew up in a place called Palampur in Himachal Pradesh. My parents were both in the teaching line, and Suman, I feel that a person with disability has disability in the psyche and not in the physical part of it. Why I'm saying that is because my parents never brought me up to focus on my disability at all. So much so that, I mean, they went to the extent of not even getting me a certificate. That was a different story. But because I was academically good, and I just went through on merit everywhere. I got my admission on merit. So I have never. The first time that somebody asked me about the certificate was when I was working in Escorts Limited, and the accounts person asked me if I had the certificate, and I said, what certificate? He said that you get income tax exemption and you're paying so much of income tax. So and after that I just brushed it off, and every time he would see me, he would ask me, ma'am, aapne wo certificate banaya? And then I realized, and then I think the year after, I got a big jhatka of the income tax, and then I realized that maybe I should get no. Then he sat me down and he said, "Listen, this is a pre-existing thing. When you get your caliper made, you get it made out of your own money." I said, "Yes, that's not covered under insurance." So he says, "That's exactly my point. That when you are not getting any coverage for that, at least what the government gives you, at least avail of that." So
Yes.
then I finally got the certificate made, and I since then, thanks to that gentleman, I bless him every March. I thank God that he spoke to me, and I listened to him, and I managed to save some tax.
Nice.
So however, I think, Suman, it's very important, and I think this is a big lacuna in our country, because parents of people with disabilities don't are first, in a shock that such a thing has happened to them, and then they don't know how to deal with it. Even if they're able to get medical treatment done, they don't know how to bring up that child, how to give a level playing field. So I personally feel that my big fortune was that I had the parents that I have, and because they brought me up like any normal child, and then my school, St. Paul's, Palampur, it's a small school, not some fancy school, but it was such an inclusive environment, because I did everything. I danced, I participated in plays, I went on stage to speak. There was nothing I didn't do. I participated in sports days also, obviously not in the big races and all, but in the fun races.
Yeah.
So of course I knew my limitations, so one would do only as much as was safe for thing. But that is the kind of place you need for children. In fact, I mean, I know of schools that refuse admission on basis of disabilities, and there are
Yes.
many of those schools. Point is that I think the government needs to put in place rules and regulations for educational institutes. Education in India has gone places. There are things, but you tell me how many of the colleges that one visits, and I do this assessment every time I go. How many of these places are accessible for wheelchair students? How many of these places are? How many of the websites are accessible for people with visual disability?
Shameful thing is, in India, government offices are also not 95% and more government offices. I'm repeating again, 95% and more
I agree. I
government
agree.
offices are not accessible.
Acha, then when during COVID, I did another thing. Nirmala Sitaraman announced that 250 universities will be having online courses. So I thought to myself, oh wow, what a good opportunity for people with disabilities to further their education. And I did an assessment of top 100 universities, top 100 corporates, and 66 government departments and ministries on web communication accessibility guidelines 2.1. I have that report with me. I took that report, I published that report, and I took it to the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. It is a sad story that less than 30% of websites of top 100 companies, top 100 universities, and ministries of the government are accessible for people with with visual disabilities.
But Sangeeta ji, you are saying less than 30%, but if you ask me, I could say less than 2%.
I am saying less than 30% basic, thoda bahut accessibility. I'm not saying all pages.
I
I'm being,
also
you
mentioned,
are
I
right.
also
I'm being
mentioned,
very generous. I'm being
yes.
very generous when I say 30%.
Yes. Sangeeta ji, I also mentioned this story in my last episode with Multiplex.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, today, the most prestigious, and it is, I think, mandatory to have a Aadhaar card if you are an Indian citizen, and a blind cannot download his or her Aadhaar card from the government website. That is the state
my
of our
God, my
government
God.
websites in the country.
Hmm. Yeah, all the important documents are not they're not the same, because they go and scan them as images, and they put them up over there
Circulars.
as PDFs.
Yes.
Circulars,
Yes.
important notifications can't be read by any screen reading software.
Yes. Yes.
Important circulars on university websites, and so on and so forth. I did and when I did the assessment, I just did the important the basic stuff that will be needed on a website. Like for instance, if we're talking about a university, a person should be able to fill the form, download the form and the prospectus if he has to apply. So
Yes.
even those were not accessible.
And it is not like they don't have awareness, they are aware of it, though you go and show them reports and ask them to do, they are so they're so negligent, they just don't want to do it.
They know it. They until it becomes a mandate, they will not do it, and that's the sad part. So when the CSR, when Section 135 of the Companies Act was put into place, a lot of companies grumbled about it being mandatory. बस जब मैंडेटरी नहीं था तब आपने कौन सा कर लिया? तब तब तो 10-20 कंपनीज ही थी ना, which were doing CSR on
Yes.
their own, left on their own. They wouldn't have done it for another 100 years.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's the problem in our country. If we don't get fined for not wearing helmet, we don't wear helmets.
Yeah.
If we don't get fined for not wearing seat belts, we don't wear them.
Yes.
Similarly, and that is for when it comes to one's own safety, that we will not do unless it's mandated. So when it comes to doing something for someone else, why will they do it unless it becomes a mandate?
Yes. Yes.
That's the sad part of things, because and it takes me back to the question you asked: why do companies not do it? The problem is that, unfortunately, the value they don't see the value that when that you are also contributing to the development of your nation, you're also contributing to the development of the world. So the bottom line of the profits is not the only bottom line. And fortunately, I'm very happy that post 2008 recession, the investment community started seeing the value of protecting the environment and assessing environmental risks and assessing social risks. And that's how ESG today has become, synonymous with sustainability for investors. And now that the investors have started asking it, and now, in the last 2 to 3 years, there's been a very rapid movement globally of demand for ESG, which is sustainability, to be a part of an integral part of all organizations and invest. In fact, investors are looking at both the financial health and the ESG ratings. There are lots of platforms that have come up which only assess companies on ESG.
Yes.
And big investors, especially Europe, is taking very rapid strides in making ESG one of the key lens that evaluates whether an investment has to be done or not to be done.
I want to know, let's say, if there is a new company coming up, let's say it's a small or fresh startup. Now, if they are willing to implement sustainability or accessibility or caring for everyone, so is that going to be a very very huge expenditure or costly affair for them?
No, not at all. Because that's just a perception that people have in their minds. If you start, yeah, for instance, if you're going to build something without thinking of everyone, and then you have to break it and then do it, then of course it will cost you. But if you do it if you put it into your strategic thinking right from the beginning, then it doesn't make the thing. For instance, supposing it's a small organization and it wants to be, the vision of the organization is to be inclusive. When they're making their office, when they're doing their interiors, at that stage itself, if they can make sure that the critical places are accessible, the cafeteria is accessible, it will not cost them anything much. Similarly, if they have in mind that we will also be employing people with different needs, so then they will accommodate for some of the desks to be slightly higher than the others, so that a wheelchair can slip in. Uh, yes, for somebody with visual this thing, they might need to account for screen reading software, but then it's a minimal cost. And let me tell you one thing: the benefit that you get in terms of the brand perception, and now customers are actually really recognizing and appreciating companies that are inclusive, that have sustainable practices built into their strategy. So for instance, I was talking to Aradhana Lal of Lemon Tree, and I asked her, I said, how do customers respond to so much of your staff being differently abled? And she said, you'll be surprised, we have such strong loyalty, and people like to come back because of the kind of service these kids give them. And they're very comfortable, and they're very happy being served, because Lemon Tree employs a lot of people with intellectual disabilities in their restaurants as well. And PVR has also embarked on that journey. And while we were from 2008 till this year, we were concentrating more on the customer side of things. This year onwards, we've got a DEI policy in place, and we are also hiring people with disabilities. We already have 10 people with intellectual disabilities that are part of our system. Inox had hired 10 people last year, and of course, now that the company is merged, those people are there. And then there are another 19 or 20 people who have physical disabilities across the organization. So it's, I think, a total of nearly 30 people are there. But now we are consciously looking at hiring people with different needs, and you'll see a lot more reflection of the world outside within our cinemas.
Great. I have one similar question like my previous question, but uh, I'm putting this question across in the other way around. Now, what if someone ignores sustainability in their organization? What kind of economic disadvantages they have to go through if they really ignore sustainability? If Mr. XYZ is building a shopping mall, a huge shopping mall, now
Yeah,
if he do not incorporate sustainability, so let's say it might be a shopping mall, it might be a cinema hall, or it might be a convention hall, function hall, anything. So
fair enough.
public commercial area.
Yeah,
Now,
so there are three
yeah,
main pillars of sustainability: environment, social, and governance. So let's start with E. So if he is not taking into account environmental norms, there are chances that he'll get slapped huge fines and penalties. So that is one aspect. Social, of course, that also means that if the mall or shopping complex is not designed to accommodate all kinds of people, he will lose out on a lot of revenue, because a lot of people who are unable to access this thing will not be spending money there,
and that
coming and
number is
shopping
big,
there. And
millions.
yeah, it is a big number. It is a huge number. And even though census happened in 2011, and census says 2.1% of thing, but the World Health Organization (WHO) numbers are talking about 7 to 8% of India's total population has some disability or the other. And of course, in 2011, the number of disabilities that were recognized were a lot less. Now, as per today, if the census was to be conducted today, the number would definitely be much higher, because there are 21 disabilities that have been recognized by the RPWD Act. So clearly, if we are talking about in a country like India, if we're talking about neglecting 7 to 8% of your population, where is your business case? I mean, what are we talking about? And this we're talking about disability. There is also, in fact, right now we're also looking at making our washrooms that are marked for people with disability to become all gender washrooms, because there is also a big community in that is there out there, which faces a lot of discrimination when it comes to use of washrooms, and that's the transgender community.
Yes.
So therein also, in terms of even hiring people with different identities. We are also looking at expanding that. But yeah, I left your question unanswered. So, and when it comes to governance, now if you don't have good governance practices, then the chances are that in terms of governance, there are things like having diversity on the board, having ethical practices, being following regulations and so on and so forth. And if that doesn't happen, then of course there are chances that if the person is not following the law of the land and is not doesn't have ethical practices, then of course that's a threat to the business itself. And now you see all these things are now going to they're getting mapped. Earlier, what used to happen was something has happened, people have brushed it under the carpet. After a few years, people have forgotten about it. Now that's not happening because there are these platforms that are recording E, S, and G performance as well. So for all companies, this is getting recorded now. So if there's negative publicity that's happened about X company, it's not that people are going to forget it. People might forget it, but your record has gone. This thing that you had some accident in your workplace, or you had safety issues were violated or something like that. Tomorrow, if there's an investor who's interested in investing in your company, and he will not just check your bottom line, he will also check your ESG. And then when he checks your ESG and he realizes that there were these safety issues and thing, he will get alerted and he will go and specifically look for safety as an aspect. So, for instance, you know how important safety is in cinemas. You know what happened with Upar. You know what almost happened in this place. There was that Fun Cinemas or something where there was a fire a couple of months back.
Yes.
So a fire in a cinema is absolutely thing. So we have very very strong safety things, and that is one of the most material aspects for a cinema.
Yes.
And so that's what I'm saying, that if gone are the days when you could just think that just because you have a healthy profit bottom line and you are doing great business, you are going to get investments. You're not. You will be evaluated on your bottom line, and you will also be evaluated on your performance on environment, social and governance issues. And if you fall short of meeting any of those, then you can say goodbye to your investment.
Big
So
or small, big or small, whatever business you are about to start, or your
any yeah, yeah,
anything, if you neglect sustainability, then no doubt your pockets are going to have a big hole soon.
absolutely, absolutely.
When you're talking about employment opportunities, now only focus is on mainstream, but how about people with disability? That's really bad. And only the good thing is only huge big corporates has got good opportunities for people with disabilities. Maybe that's part of the
Not all,
CSR
not
program,
all.
but very few have made it a point that they have to do it for the so good, doing something good to the society, like PVR.
That would require another podcast, Suman. I have a lot to say on that, but point is that I have just one simple question from the government, and that is that you have had reservations for people with disabilities for I don't know how many years. Tell me one year that you were able to fulfill all 3%.
No.
Name one year when you went even above 1% of that reservation. And even there, you have blocked roles and you decide which roles will be which they should apply for and which ones they should not apply for. So my basic this thing is that when you do not have, so my next contention is that the pipeline is empty. But
Yes.
my contention is that the ecosystem is not made like that to be able to enable the ecosystem is disabling. Your roads are not saying, your bus stops are not accessible. If even in Delhi, let's not go anywhere else. Let's move around in Delhi. If there is a pavement that has a ramp at the end, there will be vendors sitting there, so the person on wheelchair can't get out of that person his or her house to reach the bus stop. so we have and in smaller cities, so the story is only different.
Yes.
So point is that that ecosystem of ours needs to be conducive. Schools first have to be made accountable for we are saying we should have people in the workforce. Yes, you should have people in the workforce, but we should also have people in schools and colleges.
I have an example. I own a cloud kitchen company called Orbit Kitchen.
Oh,
So
wonderful. Okay.
I have a strong policy. Whatever
Mm-hmm.
businesses I'm into, whatever businesses I
Mm-hmm.
do, I make sure that first hiring preference is for people with disability. We only hire people with, in my cloud kitchens, all my kitchen staff are people with disabilities. Now,
Okay.
when Suman, a small company, a small cloud kitchen company, has this kind of attitude to recruit people with disability, when it comes to government, where they have thousands of offices, they have offices in small to small villages, Selekar, they have offices in metropolitan cities and capital cities. Now,
Mm-hmm.
each, if they could accommodate one person in each of their offices, then that's it, the game over, right? But they don't
See,
want to do it.
Suman, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. I have a very different this thing towards it. So I would never. You mentioned CSR. I would never put it under CSR, because if you put it under CSR, then it'll be charity. It's not charity.
Hmm.
Point here is that I feel anybody and everybody, if they have the capability and the qualification for a particular role, that the person should be irrespective of physical this thing, unless of course it's a dangerous job and things like that, or it requires a certain, because even when we do our hiring this thing, when we do job role mapping for the disabled candidates, we ensure that we don't give them, if there's person has a physical disability, the person doesn't have to stand too much. So we will probably give them box office, or we will probably give them different roles where they don't have to stand all the time.
Yes.
So basically, the point here is that it needs to become part of your hiring strategy. Your
Yes.
hiring strategy has to ensure that I will hire women, because it's a very simple mathematics. There are 50% women in the thing. Okay, maybe all 50% will not be have different reasons to come to the workforce. But my point is, if we can't do 50%, we can at least do 30 to 35%. But you will see in most industries and in most organizations, there is a just a 10% gender diversity. Then it comes to people with disabilities,
Hmm.
huge percentage, 7 to 8%. Then that 7 to 8% should be represented in your workforce, no?
Hmm. Yes.
Similarly, people with different preferences, etc. The transgender community, for instance, doesn't even get admission. What is their fault that they were born like that? And why should they not get education, and why shouldn't they not be a part of the
I'll
workforce?
tell you a sad story. I was shopping in a very reputed shopping mall. I seriously want to take the company's name, but considering legal health, I'm
Mm-hmm,
not
mm-hmm,
taking the name of the company. I
mm,
was shopping in a very reputed shopping mall in Hyderabad. There, a group of three of them, transgender,
mm,
are
mm,
entering the shopping mall to buy some clothes.
mm.
Now the security guards are throwing them out of the shopping mall, literally
Just imagine.
sacking them out. Matlab,
Mm.
they are not supposed to buy clothes.
God gave them the right to be born, but we are not giving them the right to shop, to come and spend the money that they earn. However, they earn it with so much of difficulties. I mean, who are we to decide whether a person should come or not come? God has let them come to the world, no? No, because when a child is born, when somebody gets married, then they want blessings from them, no?
Hmm. Yes.
I mean, I don't understand this hypocrisy.
These transgender people are not given admission in the schools. They are not given jobs in corporates or government. This thing now, but in the Ginekile for living, what else they can do other than uh, uh, you know sex working or begging on the roads, because people
They
have to
have to eat,
survive,
na?
right?
Exactly, they have to eat.
Yes.
You give them opportunity. There are. I'm forgetting the name of that one person who I was listening to her TED
Simran.
talk or something.
Simran.
That there are five, six of them who managed to make it with a lot of difficulties, and it is so moving to hear their story. I mean, the kind of struggle we can't imagine.
So PVR is also having space for them, right?
We have one transgender person. Again, was when we took over Satyam Cinemas, we inherited that one employee. I am right now. What I'm doing is I'm in the process of doing one-on-one interviews with each of them to understand. What was positive, what was negative, what we can do better, so that when in the next phase, when we go into conscious hiring, then we make sure that these problems don't occur,
Okay.
so
How
that we can make
how
it
how
easier.
was the productivity?
That person is very good. Yeah, that person is in the kitchen, and in one of the cinemas down south, I think in Chennai. And that person was taken on as ESP, which is at the the serving level. And our CHRO in fact looked at his qualifications and said, why are we hiring him as ESD? We should hire him as duty manager. Within 15 days he was taken on as duty manager, because he is so positive, and he is so energetic, and he is so willing to learn and eager to think that he's now doing so well. He's been placed in city center Gurgaon, and he's doing excellent work.
Excellent. Because my question, the reason behind my question asking you about productivity is because people have a, people imagine that hiring people with disabilities will compromise productivity in the
Oh,
organization.
those are all excuses that they make for not hiring someone.
Mm.
I personally, with my extension processes, when I joined PVR in April of 2018, I visited 80 cinemas in 40 days,
Wow.
across various cities. 40 days as in 40 calendar days, जिसमें
Yes,
weekends
yes,
भी
yes,
निकल गए
yes.
और वो भी निकल गया. But I was within a month plus, I had visited 80 cinemas, and my boss was amazed.
Wow.
And I told him, I said, I'm making a record of sorts, because I want to, because I was so eager to get that data in to see which how many cinemas are already accessible, in how many cinemas we have to put ramps, in how many cinemas. So I was so eager to get that data in, that I just traveled back to back.
PVR not only good for technology, sound technology, and visual technology. PVR is also extremely good in terms of accessibility and sustainability. And I heartfully wish the management of PVR long live PVR, long live.
Thank you so much.
PVR Inox together, total how many screens you're projecting?
Nearly 1600.
Wow, that's a big number.
Yeah.
And now let's come back to the very popular question which I have for every guest coming into my show, and there is no option of saying no, so you have to
Mhm.
answer this, Sangeeta ji. Now, if you have all the powers, if you have all the superpowers in your hand to change
Mm.
something in this country, what that would be?
It would definitely be, I would like to change the mindsets of people towards people who are different from the bulk of the population. So if any difference needs to be embraced and not to be excluded. So I would definitely want to change how people think and view people with differences, so that we are actually an inclusive society. So that is something I would like to change.
Awesome. It was great talking to you, Sangeeta ji. Thank you so much for
Same here.
giving me opportunity to host you on my show today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Suman. Bye.